coming. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for supporting me and seeing my videos. If you're new, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you'll know when I always upload content, okay? Today is going to be very triggering. I'm talking about me and my life, and some of this stuff may be disturbing to a lot of you. If if it's a trigger for you, please exit out this video. It's always another video that's going to come from me. So, this video talks about a lot of abandonment issues, neglect, rape, molestation, addiction, and all kinds of stuff. Okay. I'm going to try to go as early as I can and then work our way up. So I will say in my two to 5 years old, things was okay. We were always moving, never stayed in one place. And that's due to my grandfather on my father's side being in the Air Force. So we never stayed in one place at all, not for a long period of time, maybe between 6 months to a year, but then after that we'll be moving. The last time our family was whole was a time that things got bad. My father had discovered that my mom was cheating on him with his best friend, so-called best friend. And as my father approached her with this information, she got violent towards him and pulled a knife on him. Now, my father's background, he was always into martial arts, kickboxing, boxing, you name it. He was in all of that. And so he learned how to disarm someone. And so when he disarmed my mom, he wound up breaking her arm. And I don't think it was intentionally. So from that point on, things seemed like it wasn't normal at all. I was in and out of places. I was moved around through the family because my father was really fighting to get us back. And back in that day, the courts always side with the mother. And so this took a toll on my father eventually because he wound up becoming an addict to a lot of drugs. And because of that, he began very violently, breaking the law, always in police custody, fighting police, that sort of thing. And so I remember at 6 years old, I started growing breasts. And I asked my dad what was going on. And so my dad kindly turned me around like a father should and told me to talk to my mom. And that was during the time that he came to visit. And so my mom said, "Oh, it's just breasts, you be all right." But not long after that, 6.5 years old, about to turn 7, I was starting to get molested by my mom's living boyfriend, who supposedly be my dad's best friend. And so, he sat me down, he talked to me, you becoming a woman, and the shenanigans that abusers tend to have. And so I believed him for a very long time that he would hurt my mom and my sisters if I was to ever say anything about it. And so for a year and a half, I didn't say anything about it. I just continued on. I tried to sign up for after school curriculums like cheerleading, baseball, basketball, anything I can get myself into to try to escape the scumbag. And unfortunately, that failed miserably. So I finally had the courage to call and tell my mom, what he was doing to me. And my mom did not believe me at all. She called me a bee and a hoe, and I was trying to take her man, that kind of thing. So I said nothing about it to her ever again. Well, not ever again, but I didn't say nothing to her for a very long time until something happened. So from 6.5 years old all the way up to 10, I was being sexually abused by this man. And during the time that I was being sexually abused, I was also being abused by my mom and neglected by my mom, starting at 6.5 years old. When we finally moved into a house, um, around about 7 or 8 years old, my mom, would get mad at me when I had went to Frederick Douglass' house with her around about 6.5, maybe 7. I went to Frederick Douglass' house with her, and they were saying big words that I didn't understand. And so I kept asking my mom, tapping my mom, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, what are they saying? What does that mean? What do this mean?" And she told me that if I did not be quiet, she was going to whoop my. And sure enough, I didn't believe her because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. And so I kept asking these questions, out of curiosity. And so when we went back home, she whooped me for 3 to 4 hours. And then she threw me in the basement and locked me down there with no food and water. That was the beginning of the hell that I was living in for 4.5 years. Like I said, I've tried everything to escape what was happening at home, and it did not work at all. It just seemed like he was just waiting for me to get home because my mom was always working 2 to 3 jobs to try to make ends meet. We were even on food stamps. Back then, food stamps wasn't a card that they load money on. It was an actual booklet. And the food that you could get with those food stamps were not, I'm going to just say the description. They were always white with a white black chicken on it. So the eggs was powdered form, milk was powdered form. I mean, we was struggling. Um, and so one day I got my pubic hair, talked to my mom about that. Oh, it's just pubic hair. And I was 8 years old. By the time I turned 9, um, I had my period. I started my period. And so my mom told me about the birds and bees and what it was happening to my body. I don't think she did a very good job at all educating me. I'm just going to say that because she really didn't care. She had resentments towards me because I looked at more like my father than her. And so when I started my period, this man that my mom called her man was not only molesting me, but now he's trying to break my hammock to get me pregnant because I started a period. And so for the first 3 months after turning 10 years old, a few months after turning 10 years old, he held me away from school for 3 whole months. And so CPS and FBI stepped in. FBI came first. And so when the FBI came, they looked at me. They're like, "Ugh, what's wrong with her?" Because I was malnourished, barely get any baths, and my hair was looking a rat. And that was all due to the abuse my mom was giving me, as well as the sexual abuse. My mom would always lock me in the basement without food or water for hours at a time. She literally treated me like an animal. And so when the FBI came, they looked at me with disgust. And so I told them everything. And then they talked to my sisters one-on-one as well. And by the time they finished talking to us, they arrested this guy, got him out the house. As soon as they left with this guy, my mom pulled me to the kitchen and started throwing knives at me. I don't know how I dodged them things because I was so weak. I had no food. Like you could see every bone in my body. Um, and you could tell I was going through it. And so I don't know how I dodged the knives, but I dodged those knives. And around about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, my mom was perming my hair. And she asked me why I didn't tell her. And I said, I did try to tell you, but you called me a being a whore and thought I was taking your man. She cried and said, oh, Mika, and that was it. About 15 to 20 minutes after that conversation, CPS came and knocked on the door and got us out of there for good. And so they separated me and my sisters. They separated all of us, the three oldest, which is me, my sister Dolores, and my sister November. We were sent into a foster home while my two younger sisters were sent to another foster home. And so this foster home, I did not realize they were taking good care of me. They really was. They did their best. But I didn't realize how much hurt and pain that I had bottled inside of me. And so I started acting out. And when I started acting out, they couldn't handle me. I started running away, trying to be around boys. I even hit my foster father when he came and grabbed me and picked me up and put me on his shoulder. I went ballistic. I really did. Like something really snapped. And I think it was the nature of him picking me up and putting me over his shoulder in that form. It just drove me to rage. And so at 11, I was at a place called Riverside that's closed now. And this place is an institution for misbehaving children. And so I did a lot of things in that facility that will make you understand, wow, she really been through some stuff. I was always getting picked on by not just the kids, but the staff too. I was always flashing, and I got into a habit of stealing. And I just want to go back and tell you why I got into a habit of stealing is because right around the time that the FBI had came and they left and everything, I wound up sneaking $800 out of my mom's stash. And I used that for food and everything. Once we left out of my mom's house, I used it for food and stuff. And of course, CPS was trying to figure out how I got that money and everything. So now going back to 11, I've been in Riverside for a very long time. And then close to my 12th birthday, I was transferred from Riverside to this group home called Devereaux. And again, these places are now closed. Devereaux was off of R Street Northwest in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. And it just seemed like I got worse. Things just didn't look right for me. I was always getting bullied and picked on again, like I said, by the staff and the children. I remember me always being separated from the bunch. I always been separated from the other kids. Always had to be separated. And what I mean is that they always had me in my room all the time or in a secluded room all the time with a staff member with me. And so I didn't have much freedom. And that caused me to act out even more and even more and even more. And then there's times that, they tried to make me do family therapy with my mom, and it was just not happening. It's like, my mom at the time didn't want to take ownership to what she done and how she allowed things to happen. And I got pissed off and I stormed out. And it's like when they try to talk about the abuse, I never wanted to talk about it. I always threw a fit and got angry. So family therapy was just not working. Eventually I did so much damage in Devereaux that they sent me to St. Elizabeth. And same thing. I met someone there at St. Elizabeth that made me feel comfortable, able to talk to. Of course, it was a male. And when he left, I felt like he abandoned me again, me being abandoned and neglected. And I didn't know this at the time, but it was due to neglect and abandonment issues I had that had me going ballistic over this boy, to the point he left and I was still there. And I got so bad that, of course, they put me in a straitjacket, that kind of thing. So then they had a meeting and they finally said, we're going to send you out to Virginia, to another place, another institution. And so that's what they did. And it just was bad. I never really accomplished or succeeded in these places. My anger, I was so fueled with hurt and rage that it literally separated me from everyone else. And of course, the staff didn't understand. The caseworkers didn't understand. They didn't want to take the time to understand. They didn't want to take the time to talk to me or put positive energy into me. They didn't want to do that. It was just so easy to condemn me and to bully me and to get me to act a certain way where I'd be the one getting consequenced. And I stayed there. I stayed in these places until I was about 15 years old. And when I got to 15, they finally decided to put me in a group home in D.C. off of North Capitol Street. That one's closed too. Someone bought the house. But it was like when they finally released me, everything just seemed new. It didn't seem like the DC I once knew before. It just seemed new. I felt out of place. I didn't feel like I was equipped to be a part of the world. And I wasn't. And so my actions again led to, what's really deeply going on with me again, because I wound up running away. And, during the time of running away, I was raped, gang raped, and I took that as a normal behavior, a normal behavior. And so when I finally, somehow I came across my uncle. I don't know how I found this man. I don't even know how I knew that he was in the house where my grandfather and grandma on my father's side used to live at. And I don't know how I did it, but I did it. I walked there and he turned me back in. And of course they did a rape kit and all kinds of stuff. And so after that, they put me into a temporary home. I was in that home for 2 weeks, and then from the 2 weeks, I went to a Proctor home. Well, before the 2 weeks of temporary home, I went to the foster home that I once was at the age of 10. And things didn't work out there. The son had put his hands on me. And so I was sleeping outside of my door with a knife in my hand. And so I told them, y'all got to take me back to CPS. And so that's what they did the very next day. And I went to a temporary home for 2 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, I went to a Proctor home. I'm going to tell you the difference between a foster home and a Proctor home. A foster home can have up to as many children they want. Okay? A Proctor home can only have up to 2 children. And at the same time, and they put money on the side for you to have once you get of age, once you age out. So those are the two differences of a foster home and a proctor home. Now, you would think I was doing good in the proctor home, but I wasn't. No. See, I eventually came across a young man. He was 19, I was 15. At the timing, I had left school on my way home, supposedly. And I met him at the station, Rhode Island Avenue station. And I put on very well. I really did. I put on very well. And of course, I was very sexually active. And I became sexually active when I was in Virginia. I snuck around me, and a boy snuck around and wound up doing the do. And then we got caught. I mean, I'm laughing. It's not funny. It's not funny. But I'm laughing to keep myself from breaking down. And so I met him and brought him back to the house. And, my proctor mom basically allowed me to do whatever I wanted to. I mean, I showed her respect and everything, but she basically just allowed me to do what I wanted to do. Running the streets, having 2 to 3, 4 boys coming in and out of the house. It was a mess. The 19-year-old guy thought, what do you expect a 16-year-old child to do? 15-year-old, 16-year-old child to do? She ain't gonna be committed to you because she got so much problems and baggage that's going on with her that she doesn't understand what's going on with her. But of course, we didn't see that at the time. And so I did a lot of things with this guy on and off for 10 years. When I turned about 16 years old, that's when I got sent back to another institution eventually. And I went to an institution in Florida for 2.5 years. Well, a year and a half, because at 17 I had to leave because they don't keep you at 18. So I turned 17 and I was ready to leave the place. Again, those are institutions where I was being picked on and bullied by not just the children, but the staff as well. And so when I finally left that place in Florida, I went to another group home on South Dakota Avenue. And yes, I wound up getting the job, but then I wound up getting fired from the job. And so I basically didn't care, set myself and half of the house on fire. And I left a ticket on a Greyhound to Florida with someone I thought I knew and his family. And so I was robbed. He robbed me. Him and his mother robbed me. I mean, I was stuck and everything. And so I finally just said, bump it, I'm going to go back to D.C. I didn't want to, but I said, okay. And so after a week and a half of being out on the streets in Florida, I finally called my therapist. And not my therapist, but my caseworker. And so she sent the ticket for me to get on a train to come back to D.C. And she met me at Union Station. And not Union Station, the Greyhound bus station. And at the time, the Greyhound bus station was on K Street, Northwest. And so from that point, I can't really remember much at that point, but what I do know is this, that I signed myself out when I went to court at the age of 18. I signed myself out. And the judge and everyone was like, why you want to sign yourself out? And I said, because I'm tired of going to institutions. I'm tired. I'm not getting no help. Everything y'all do is counterproductive. So I don't want it anymore. And so that's what I did. I signed myself out. Now, at this time, I was floating from place to place, man to man, you name it. I was really homeless. I've been homeless for a very, 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 very long time. I came across the 19-year-old man, and we started back up a relationship. And I seen the true side of him, but I ignored the signs for a while. And what I mean is that he was beating on me. It became into a domestic violence relationship and a drug addiction. He introduced me to drugs. He introduced me to marijuana, a few other substances, and the favorite substances that I liked was cocaine and marijuana and alcohol. I would get so intoxicated to the point I can't stand up or whatever. And eventually I stayed with him. I moved in with him. Things got really bad between us. So I was in and out of the court system, trying to find a place to go to. Then eventually I had his baby. Didn't want to have his baby. Tried to cut the baby out on my own. I mean, I really was going through it. And during all this time, and I didn't understand what was wrong with me. And at this time, and by this time, and I had stopped taking medication. I have stopped seeing a therapist and a doctor because I didn't want to believe something was mentally wrong with me. And so I allowed myself to still get molested, still get raped, and now beaten, and now an addict. And people tried, it were people, a couple of people that tried to let me know what was really going on with me. I actually even got introduced to rehab, through East of the River collaboration. And I just wouldn't stay. I wouldn't stay to get the help that I needed. I disregard a lot of people who were really trying to help me because I felt as though they were just like everybody else that hurted me. And so I didn't hear what they were saying. And so I had my first child at 21. And I was an addict, a sexaholic, okay? A problem to society and to herself. So I didn't really have a son, and I was always going back and forth to court for my son. Of course, it was joint custody eventually, and after that, I just been in and out of the shelters, in and out, 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 in and out. And then when I started having meltdowns and breakdowns, I would put myself in a hospital, in an institution, a psychiatric ward once again. And the reason why I would go to these places all the time was because that's all I knew. And in some way, in some weird form, I felt safe. I felt safe there. I felt comfortable. My mind was institutional. It didn't know nothing else but institutions. And so around 23 was the last time I got molested and raped. With my domestic violence relationship, of course, I've done a lot of things that I really didn't want to, which is sell my body and sell myself for someone, to help someone. I mean, because I believed his lies. Nobody didn't want me. I was a magnet. I wasn't worth anything. All I was worth for is laying on my back. And so I believed those things because it wasn't just repeated to me, one time. It was told to me from so many people. So many people have told me this. that I wasn't worth anything and that I was only good for laying on my back. I didn't have no qualities and nobody didn't want me. And I believed that for a very long time. And so I acted upon that. And at the age of 25, I finally told him and everyone else around me, I'm done. I don't want it anymore. I'm done. So I've called my mother up. I really had no one else to call. I really didn't want to call my mom because I was the only one left in the system. And the reason why was that because my mom didn't want me. She got all my sisters back. But when it came down to me, she said she didn't want me. So I finally just, called my mom at 25, told her, look, I ain't gonna be no problems. I just want a place to stay for a couple of months until I can figure something out. And so that's what happened. And when I moved in with her, I believe on the 30th of October, which is the day after my birthday, I moved in with her and left my son and his father behind. And I wound up meeting my husband, my now husband. And during the course of that, I would always pay my son's father just so I could see him, just to see my son. And either I had to pay him or I had to give him some sex, and just to see my child. But eventually I broke away from him, and I gave all the problems to my husband. That's why I jumped my heart. Ooh. And I like I said, I gave a lot of problems to my husband. And especially when we had our daughter, I really used her against him. I made sure that I had kept her, but then it was times that I couldn't keep her, where I needed him to step in and get her, and he wouldn't do it. And it was a back and forth, a power struggle between the two of us because we didn't understand ourselves and we didn't understand each other, of course. And so throughout the years of me dealing with my husband, and even after we got married, I have done a lot of wrongdoing, cheating for one, and stepping inside of my marriage. And so I finally got to a broken point where I was desperate for peace and for change. I still had that institutional mindset as well. And I was always used to problems. It made me feel like I was human, to be hurt and to be in a lot of pain. And so 2018, well, let me back up. In 2016, I got pregnant by my husband again, but we lost the baby. And around that time, my sisters needed my help. They came to me, and I remember one of them, she was pregnant. She had her kids with her. Her kids looked nasty, a mess. I gave them some food and let them, take a bath and clean up themselves. And, during this timing of me going through the roller coaster in my life on my personal end, I still found ways to try to help, to basically buy my mom and my sister's love, to buy my spot in the family when I shouldn't have. I should have already had that spot. But unfortunately, my mom and my sisters they looked at me as an eyeball, the black sheep. And so I was treated very unfairly from my mom and my sisters. And when I would react to certain things that they've done, um, it's always call the police or something like that. So, 2016, that happened. Went into a program, left the program, came to my husband, going back and forth into these programs and abusing drugs at the same time. And still not seeing a doctor, still not seeing a therapist, and still not having my medication. This stuff really, it really helped to make my condition worse. It really helped. The rape, the molestation, no medication, stop taking my medication, take my medication, stop taking my medication, going through the physical abuse and everything. All of that contribute to my condition to worse. And 2018 was the last straw for me because I was really desperate for peace and comfortability in a normal life, as much as normal as possible, if I even know what normal is. But it had to be better than what I was living. And someone showed me that. I was dealing with someone in 2018 that showed me that. And I thank him for showing me that. And so, I went to my husband, told him the same game, but he seemed like he knew that I was different this time. I was really desperate. And so me and my husband went working together. I've got in contact with a core agency again, seeing a doctor, therapist, medication management, and a caseworker. And that's what I was doing. And I've gotten a little better. I've gotten a little better. And I wound up having another baby in 2019 by my husband. And so now we got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And I try my best every day to be better than I was the day before, because I don't want to go back to that misery. I tell my story all the time and I look over my story all the time because I want to be reminded that how I was living before was miserable. It was very miserable and lonely, and it was hard to adjust and to keep up because I had to wear a lot of masks and hats to be able to feel like I'm part of or to blend in to society. And I just, I'm happy now. You can say that. I'm not saying that I don't have a lot of problems, because I do still have problems, but I'm able to face, problems head on. I've been re-diagnosed with bipolar 1 and 2 with psychotic episodes now. And that's due to all the drugging and the misuse of my medication and me not staying on my medication like I should have been and everything. And that is the reason why my condition got worse. I was diagnosed at the age of 11. If I didn't tell you guys that I was diagnosed at the age of 11 when I went into Riverside and they diagnosed me with bipolar 2. Of course, with PTSD as well, depression, then it was schizophrenia. It was a mess. I had a lot of drugs, and not outside drugs, not street drugs, but medications from doctors, a lot of them. And it seemed like none of them worked. It just made my condition worse. And so now I got a better doctor, a better therapist, a better caseworker, and medicine that's actually right for me. And I still have my bad days. I still have my bad days. But I have a lot of good days, more good days than bad days. And eventually, I will have my children and my husband speak to you guys on how it feels and what it's like to live with someone who is mentally ill. And I've made this video because I want to let you all know that no matter if you're going through, no matter what you're going through, you can make it out. It took me my entire life to figure that out because I didn't have no guidance. I was always in institutions. And when I wasn't in institutions, I was drowning on the streets because, again, I had no guidance. I had no one. And those who were trying to help me, I pushed away. I pushed away. I didn't want nobody to get close to me at all. And so that's why I made this video. This is why I started Mimi's Lounge. To be an ear and a supportive person to those who have experienced what I've had experienced or similar to what I've had experienced, and to give them hope and inspiration and to let them know that they can too have a good life. And that's why I created Mimi's Lounge, for those sole purposes. Eventually, I will be doing a supportive group where us women come together, share our differences, and also give suggestions to one another, and mainly uplift one another and let each other know that it's all right. There's someone out there who has been through exactly what you've been through, and you're not alone, and you can make it out. There's always a way out. And so, with that being said, everyone, I just want you to have a wonderful Thursday, the rest of your Thursday. It's a little dark outside, no sun on my end. And I will be seeing you guys in the next one. And we'll get into depth about living with mental illness and how it feels to be living with someone with a mental illness. Until then, I love you all. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.